Help, it's the holidays. I know so many of us can be overwhelmed by the upcoming season and all the expectations that come along with it. So, for the next several weeks, we're going to be helping you out by encouraging you to focus on the real reason for the season and to create memories that will last a lifetime. Guys, welcome to the show. I'm your host, Courtney Doyle, and this is the place I am giving you permission to not have it all together. Welcome back to the show. It is the holidays and moms are crying for help. And so I have been so blessed to find some incredible guests that are coming on the show and they're saying, hey, I have got some help for you. And my guest today is no different. Welcome to the show, Deborah France. I'm going to turn the mic over to you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your family, and what you do.
Absolutely. Thank you, Courtney, so much for having me. I was in ministry for years, full time for a church, ran all kinds of programs for people of all different situations. And
Mhm.
in this past year, it's been a growing pains for my family and I as I felt God call me to step out into this on my own. And so I coach people through different challenging situations and help them map out their paths to how to get to where they're heading. And so it's been a joyful thing to help people find hope along their stories and through their journeys.
And it's so needed. We all have a story, right? And it
Yes.
doesn't matter what your story is, there's always going to be a piece to it that can be really painful. And to have people that are willing to come alongside you and coach you through that and point you back to hope is so important. So I know that the work that you're doing is so valuable to those that are able to meet with you. And that doesn't change because it's the holidays. Our stories don't get easier because it's the holidays. If anything, our stories can get harder and they can feel harder during the holiday season. And that's why I'm doing this series. And that's why I've asked you to come on because you have such intimate knowledge about this topic. And that is navigating the holidays when you have a blended family. So let's jump right in to that. The mama that's saying, help, I have a blended family. What does this look like, Deborah?
So having a blended family, especially when you have different dynamics of custody. So in our household, we have two children that are with us all the time. And then we have two children that come and go. And so blending those things of different traditions, different homes, different who's going to be where when, there's grief in that. And there's also a lot of like juggling of figuring out
Mhm.
who needs to be where when and how do we still make sure they get the joy and the hope of the season without it being something that's, oh my goodness, I'm without my kid this holiday. And so there's a lot of emotions that come with it because it's one more thing on your calendar too. When moms are talking about these very full calendars, now you're also adding the layer of the calendar of here's all this extra of who needs to be where when and what house are they going to be at, and so how do I coordinate our schedule even around when kids are
Mhm.
here.
Mhm.
So that's the path that we have had to navigate these last few years. And we're still not great at it. And it is a learning curve every year as we're learning what we need to do to best give everyone peace through this
Mhm.
season because it can be pure chaos.
Mhm. Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of it also depends on the relationship amongst the
Mhm.
adults, the communication amongst the adults. What does that look like? I know so often, and I've had friends that have had blended families, the children are weapons
Mhm.
between the lack of communication between the adults, and now you've got kids stuck in the middle. How do you handle, let's say, the family that the kids they don't wanna be pulled back and forth for the holidays, and so now you've got the grief and the tension from the kids as well as the parents who are struggling with this back and forth.
And I'll be honest with you, we have dealt with that some in our
Mhm,
household, where at different times, different kids don't want to be at the table with everyone else. They want their own space. But the one thing I've been learning over the last few years was also giving them choices, making sure that they have some ownership in the season.
mhm,
It's important for them to see a calendar and say, this is what's important to me, or finding new traditions that make them want to be part of. A great example is my kids grew up with me wanting me to do a scavenger hunt for them for Christmas.
Mm,
Every Christmas, there's a letter in the tree. They're not going to have it until the very end. And my kids have done a really good job now of incorporating their bonus siblings into that, where now this has become something they all look forward to. Where maybe before they're like, we wanted our old traditions, but I've seen the more new traditions and the more things you can have them collaborate on together and they have ownership in, the more they want to partake in what's
mhm,
around them. So making sure they
mhm,
have voices in it all because
mhm,
because there are parts they can't have a voice in. There are legal components that we can't avoid if this decree says you need to be here at this day
mm.
and you can go kicking and screaming. But at the end of the day, what can you still find that's good for them and give them options?
Mhm. It's so I love that opportunity of them having a voice where they can, because like you said, so often there are just pieces of it that they don't. And so also you made another comment about flexibility. And so let's talk to the mom who thinks, nope, it all has to happen on the day it's supposed to happen. And we really need to release some of that control
Mhm.
and be a little more flexible so that we don't completely lose all joy by trying to be
Mhm.
really rigid around what we think needs to happen.
Yes. So, a great thing I use in my house all the time, and this is what we live by, we have a choice to either be a rock or to be Play-Doh. And if we're the rock, we're not going to fit through all these spaces. We're not going to be able to like navigate through this turn or go through here. But if we're the Play-Doh and we're willing to bend and we're willing to flex, there's a lot more places we can go. We
Mm,
can get to a lot more. So, with that, one of the things I love to talk to the kids about is okay, what is at least one thing each one of you finds the most important thing in this season? And I'll make a list. Or like I do this even if we go on a trip. I want every person to give their voice for one thing. And that's going to become a priority on the list that that's what we make happen.
mm,
Um, we do not have my husband's children for Christmas this year. We won't get them until the day after. So that's always hard when we only have two. And so we've already planned that Christmas morning can be the 26th. Like that's
mhm,
okay. And giving yourself permission that just
mhm,
because a calendar says something does not mean that's what your household has to do. We
mm,
can celebrate Jesus every single day. We don't have to just celebrate Jesus on the 25th, and
mhm.
giving permission in families, that's okay. And that will give so much peace and that ability to grow. And I feel like blended families really are this like Jesus growing our hearts to not be so rigid, to be able
Yeah.
to be more flexible because everything flexes in a blended family.
Yeah. And the freedom that gives you to say, we're going to do it different.
Hmm.
That and the peace that it gives the kids, the ability for them to go and enjoy the Christmas at their mom's or at their dad's,
Yeah.
not worried about what they're missing out on. Look, the saying, I'm having FOMO. Nobody likes the fear of missing out. And
Yes.
so, why would we project that on our kids during such an important holiday for them to think I'm missing out on what's happening. So I think going back to that communication, like you're giving the kids a voice and then communicating, hey, nothing fun is going to be happening without you. Like we value you enough to wait because at the end of the day, like you said, we can celebrate Jesus at any time. It does not
Yeah.
have to happen. And I really think there's a listener out there that probably needs to hear that. And it doesn't even have to be blended families that are experiencing that. It could be families that need to travel to grandparents' houses and but they need to have their own Christmas at home. Or like in our situation this year, one of our daughters is a nurse. And so she's working all the days around
Mhm.
Christmas. You know what? It's not another family or a legal document telling her what she has to do. It's her job. Her
Yeah.
boss is telling her this is when you're scheduled. So guess what we're going to do? We're going to shift. We're going to be flexible. And so I think it doesn't just have to be a blended family. I think we all need to embrace flexibility at
Hmm.
this time of year. and not be a rock, but be Play-Doh.
Yeah.
I love that analogy so much. I love it so much.
Yeah, it has gotten us through so many things when I bring
Mhm.
that back up. My kids are sick of it, but I'll bring it up and I'm like, "Are we a rock today or are we Play-Doh?" Because we're
Mhm.
gonna bend and Play-Doh makes some pretty cool things. Like,
Yeah.
rocks are just rocks.
Yeah.
So,
That is so great, and they may get sick of it now, but I bet when they're moms and they have kids, you're gonna all of a sudden hear your kids tell your grandchildren, "Are we a rock or are we Play-Doh?" And then you're gonna go, "Huh? It wasn't so stupid after all, was it?" So let
yes.
me ask you this, as a mom and as a bonus mom, you're busy, you work full time, you're a wife, you're a mom. How do you maintain the joy amidst this chaos? Like you said, the chaos of the calendar, all of the things, being flexible, probably handling the unexpected because
Yeah.
things happen. How do you maintain your joy, Deborah, during all of that?
So this is one of the cool things that I incorporated a few years ago, and I've given this to people. And actually, it's going to be on my website in December. A lot of people you'll hear talk about safety plans. I come up with joy plans. So
Oh,
you get ahead of yourself so you don't go to that dark place. So a joy plan incorporates something along the lines of, okay, what are the things that are going to quickly take me out of this negative spot? And so years ago, I was a single mom working full time for a church. And let me tell you, in December through Advent season, it is complete chaos. And being a single mom who is solely raising her kids and needing to be at the church like 24/7 with all the Advent activities going on, I was burnt to the core. Like, I
oh, I
could
bet.
not figure out how to function. I remember being up wrapping presents all night because I
Mm,
just didn't have the time. So this was the year that I incorporated this joy plan. I said, I'm not going to do this like this anymore. And what
mm,
that looks like was I sat there one day and I took a notebook and I wrote the things that I knew would slow me down and would bring me joy. And no matter where I was, I knew I had to do it. So one of my things was I wrote down a plan where I strategically put a chair by my Christmas tree that if I was in my home and I was overwhelmed by everything, I would make myself go sit in that chair. I strategically put the ornaments that gave me the best visions and the best stories of my life in a place that were right in front of me so that I could sit, be still, and remember what I'm really doing in this season. It's not about
mm,
the things, it's not about the expectations, it's not about the checklist. But at the end of the day, if we don't have joy through this season, what are we doing?
mhm, mhm. And you purposely were choosing things that bring you joy, and
Yes.
that chair slowed you down. It forced you to
Mhm.
sit and reflect.
Yes. And there's like songs, you can pick a song that you automatically have in your phone that
Mhm.
this is a song when I'm driving and I'm just losing it in my mind and I'm like, I need to go here and here and here. Play the song, pull yourself back.
So many ideas that I think we could come up with that bring us joy, like the simplicity of a chair, the
Yeah.
simplicity of a song. Maybe it's a coffee that is
Yes.
peppermint mocha or whatever, and you're like, okay, this focuses me back. I just think if we stop long enough, we can choose joy, and we can
Mhm.
choose those things that are going to redirect us to experience that joy versus allowing the enemy to steal all of those moments that otherwise wouldn't be joyful. It's definitely a practice, though. This is something we have to
Mhm.
actively practice. We can't just go, oh, it's the holidays and everybody's joyful at the holidays. And so I'm joyful, because a lot of people really battle a lot of depression at the holidays as well. And it's my father, actually, always a really happy guy. There was something about the holiday season that was depressing to my dad. And even when we would talk about it as adults, he would say, there is something about this time of year that just makes me blue. And I can't put my finger on it. He just could not even put his finger on what was it about the holidays that made him just a little sad. And so I think sometimes we have to be aware of that too. There just may be things from our past, or like what you're saying with this blended family, that could very easily, the stress of navigating that, navigating your own emotions through it, navigating the children's emotions through it, your spouse's emotions through it. That's a lot of feelings being filtered in to
Mhm.
a few weeks. Like we're
Yep.
going to have all the feels right now. That's hard to manage.
Yes. Yeah. It is, but it's doable. It's
Yeah.
doable, and just like safety plans, take the time and sit there and give yourself 15 minutes, take out a
Mhm.
notebook and write, what would bring me joy and slow me down when I feel my brain going into chaos in this season? And
Mhm.
have that plan already in place, because one of the number one things I've always taught is, if you have the tools ahead of time, the building of the thing is much easier.
Mm. Yeah, you're so right.
Right.
That's with anything that you're doing. That is a great piece of advice. Put the tools in place before you
Yeah.
even need them. And that doesn't have to be isolated to the holidays.
No, not
Not
at
at
all.
all.
No,
Yeah.
that is a vital thing, to always work on what toolboxes you need to fill. And one of them
Mm.
for all of us needs to be joy. Like this time of year, yes, because the things we're doing try to just drain all that joy out of us. But
Mhm.
all year round, we come up with circumstances and stories that are just going to try to drain everything out of us. Always
Mhm.
have a joy plan,
Mm.
always. And that can change in the seasons. Change your joy plan out. Four
Yeah.
times a year, quarterly, say, okay, this is my joy plan for this time of year. Create joy
Mm.
plans even for your kids. Like,
Yeah.
okay, what are the things you need when you're going to this bad place? How can we bring you back?
Oh, yeah, that's a great idea. Because they're gonna have their own things that, "Oh,
Mhm.
mom, when I do this," or when you read a book to me, or we go to
Mhm.
a park, whatever it may be. And so that's I love that so much. Now I'm envisioning a toolbox and I'm like, "What all can I put in that?" And so that's wonderful. So let me ask you this. This blended family, the chaos of the calendar, there's some grief that is accompanied with kids having to go back and forth during
Mhm.
the holiday season. How do you navigate that emotion for yourself and for the kids who probably can't say I'm grieving? They don't know that's what
Mhm.
it is. And I think a lot of people don't actually they don't acknowledge it as a real grief. It's just they may be misdirected like I'm angry, I'm bitter, I'm
Mhm.
frustrated, all the things. But at the end of the day, I think deep in our hearts, we're grieving that things don't look the way maybe we
Mhm.
envisioned.
Yes. And even more, there's multiple components to the grief here, because we have one set that has the grief of going back and forth. And so we have the grief of them leaving. And then I know my other two have the grief of, there's a family we once had and we don't, and
Mm,
working through those emotions. So there's, depending on your story, there's all different types of grief with it. And the number one thing I tell myself, I tell my family, and I tell everyone I minister to, it's okay to feel what you feel. Allow yourself to feel that and be okay in that,
yeah.
because stuffing it and ignoring it's not going to bring you joy through the season. It's really
Mm,
not. And my kids have even seen me at different points saying, this is hard, and being able to vocalize when it's hard,
mm,
and being able to come up with things that make it okay to feel but still find joy. You can still be happy and hurt at the same time. And sometimes we don't understand that. But I know, and I'm just going to be raw and real here, Christmas morning is going to hurt, because I will do something with mine because they don't have a second home to go to. So I
mhm,
want them to have the both experiences. They'll have their big experience with their scavenger hunt when their sisters get here, but they will do something. But that morning, I know my husband and I will look at each other and we'll just be like, last year there was so much laughter and there was just so much
mhm.
loud, and there's just all of this stuff going on. And I know we will feel it that day,
Yeah.
but don't sit there. As a friend
Mhm.
used to always tell me, just don't unpack. Feel it, but don't unpack it all. Keep your bag going and you keep going.
Yeah. That's good advice as well, because it would be easy to get stuck there, and then
Yeah.
you've lost all your joy.
Yeah. And then you might have to go back to your joy plan and be like,
Yeah.
okay, but then also remembering what is still good around me. And I do this in our house all the time because the thing about blended families, and this is something I write about, is no matter what, you have scars that are all coming together.
Mm,
No one came from nothing that was broken in order to get to a blended family. You
mhm.
know, every story in that situation has scars.
Yeah.
Always knowing that those are there, being cautious and careful with how you go forward is vital. And
Mm,
making sure that you're aware that I know a lot of times families just want to gloss over this happened, it was in the past. No, there's always going to be that's part of your story. You don't have to live in the dark parts of it. But then recognizing what is still good around us. Okay, so what's good? We have this wonderful space that we get to still celebrate Christmas. We get to, like, for my husband's girls, like, they're excited because they get Christmas twice.
mhm,
It's like, that's exciting. That's good. We get all these things that are still good. And so making sure one thing I always recommended to moms that had households that were struggling, put a wall up where kids are putting note cards of the good things they see around. Yes, it's great to have a prayer wall in your house, but those are the things we need and we are seeing that are wrong. And that's great to recognize, but make it even more abundant the things that are right, the things that God
mm,
is doing, the things that are beautiful around us, what God is providing. My entire story is a very dark story. This past year, and people refer to my life as being like Job. And it
mm,
very much was. For 10 years, I walked in the wilderness. And this past year has been my awakening year, where I've
mm.
seen God replant all these beautiful things from walking through just treacherous paths. And he has restored in ways that, like, I can't help but want to just blow up a wall of he is good in the midst of all things. And we
Yeah,
have to constantly recognize that.
yeah. And it's a good reminder for our kids too, for them to see, like what you said a minute ago, you tell the kids, this is hard. And letting them sit in the hard and understand that it's acceptable. And then shifting your perspective though and saying, even in the hard, here's the happy. Here's what has happened where God has moved in our lives. And it keeps our eyes focused on Jesus and not our Job moments where we're like,
Mhm.
man, we are desperate. So that's another great tool that a family could use all year round, not just at Christmas. Now, let's talk about this. What about the blended family? How do we stay out of the trap of comparison? This is happening there, not happening here. Like, how do we balance that? Because I think that, look, we're women, we
Mhm.
can fall into that really quick. And so, how do we navigate that with ourselves and with our children?
It has to start with ourselves. We
Yeah.
constantly have to be checking our motives and why we're doing what we do. And I could get into a whole thing with Enneagram numbers, and really it matters like what that driving force is within us, whether how we're going
Hmm.
to navigate that. But at the end of the day, if we go back to the place of this is about the kids and this is about the genuine love, if I'm truly going to love as Christ has taught me to love, that comes with no expectations, that comes with no like needing to have one up on someone ever, and it genuinely comes from a motive, like checking your motives. And that here's another tool I use. I've never used it written, but I always use it mentally, even before I share on social media or anything. What is my motive in doing this?
Mm,
Constantly asking yourself that question. If I'm going to go do this thing, what is my motive? But
mm.
then the other thing is being okay with you not being the one that did the best.
Oh, yeah.
Finding that place in yourself of they did better than me this year. And
Yeah.
that's okay. That's okay. And that doesn't mean I have to go do 10 times better next year. At the end of the day, you want the kids taken care of.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
doesn't matter who's doing better or who's doing this. safety, love, the abundance of Christ, like that at the end of the day is where we constantly, and I know the world is screaming at us
Yeah.
for all these things to one up and do this. And that definitely flows into blended families. And we have to constantly check our motives of what
Mm.
we're doing, why we're doing it, and how to first put the children's needs in front of all of that.
Yeah, that'll preach to
Yeah,
everybody. We all need to be checking our motives
we
at all
do.
times. Yeah,
We do.
100%. And it is comparison is definitely a thief of joy because and it's in our face because of social media and things like that. We did not have to face this level of comparison prior to knowing every single thing that everybody's doing and every gift that they're being given and things like that. And so it can definitely be a really slippery slope if we're not careful. And
Mm,
one of the earlier interviews that I did, we talked about if you find yourself falling into that trap, turn it off.
yeah,
Turn it off. There's a
absolutely.
tool that how about you say no? How about you turn it off? There's some tools that you can put in your toolbox. And so that's my final question for you because you had talked about say no.
Yes.
Say
Oh,
no.
absolutely. I am telling people all the time, this is one of the number one things I coach people through. No is still love.
Mm,
Like, even think about raising your kids. I love you enough to say no. And that's a line I use in my house all the time. I can be your friend and let you do whatever you want. Or I can say no because I love you enough to do the hard thing and want you to succeed more later.
mhm.
And so saying no opens that door for your best yeses.
Right.
Take the
Right.
time to sit with God and let Him show you where your yeses are, not overextend your calendar. And I'm watching churches do this and knowing behind the curtains of a church, they overdo because they think that's what's going to bring in the most for people, like in what they want. But at the
Yeah.
end of the day, people are seeking joy more than they're
Mhm.
seeking joy and
Mhm.
peace. And overextending a calendar does not provide joy and peace. It actually
No.
steals from it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we have to be cautious with our time.
Mhm. My interview that it released today, one of the things she said is she was finding herself getting to a point that she could not wait for December 26th. She was so
Oh,
ready for the holiday to be over because she had overextended herself in this attempt to do all the things. And then she started realizing, wait a minute. And then she'd get to December 26th and look back, and instead of reflecting on all the things that they had done, she was starting to really beat herself up for the things that she didn't do. And she said, that's when I realized, hold on a minute, my priorities are out of whack here, and we need to do this different. We need to slow down. And so I agree with you that peace can't be found in a packed schedule. Take some time to say no to a few things. Now, I am ending every one of these conversations, and so I may put you on the spot. So put
okay.
your thinking cap on. What is one tradition or a meal that is non negotiable? Like we are not missing this tradition or this recipe no matter what. Do you have one?
Our scavenger hunts. Those are
Okay.
the kids, they even have claimed they would have a riot. I would not survive. I would be tied up somewhere if I did not do one of my scavenger hunts. I end up having 20 clues and they're riddles. They're not just go to this. They are full on riddles where they're having to use their brain and try to figure out, oh, what is she talking about? What is that like happening in that spot? And then they'll run and I usually video them because they're hilarious trying to figure these out, and they'll
Yeah,
run to those spots and there's the next one, and then there'll be some other riddle, and some are outside, some are inside, some like I make them go all over the place with this hunt, and then usually there's something that they absolutely love at the end.
that's so fun. That is
Yeah,
so fun.
that is our definite non-negotiable.
I love it. I love it. I've done that like a scavenger hunt for a gift or whatever, but I've never done the riddles. It's always, you'll find me under the bed or whatever. But I had to start doing that a little bit whenever they were getting older. And so they were waking up like maybe Christmas morning before we were. And so they would see the presents that weren't wrapped. And so I was like, you know what? We put a lot of effort into this. And so we're going to make them work for it. And so then I get to experience their joy. And because we have a large family, a lot of times everybody was doing it at the same time. And so we didn't get to really enjoy like each individual child. So this way it gave everybody the opportunity to have their one special gift and everybody watched them open it and them get to experience it when we did a scavenger hunt and it led to
Yeah.
everybody's gift individually. So that's really cool. You may have to give me some tips on some riddles though. I don't know that I'm that
Oh, they're
creative.
fun. I love doing stuff like that. Like one of the other things, and I actually was talking to kids this year that I need to bring this back because it's been a long time since I've done this. But I used to write like Christmas mystery dinners, and everyone was a character at the table. And I wrote a whole script, and like one of them was like, "Who stole Santa's cookies?" And there's this whole script that would go around like which character, whether it was a gingerbread man or whether it was Rudolph or stuff like
Oh,
that.
that is so fun.
Yeah, I love doing stuff like that.
That's awesome. You know what I think the kids also, when they get older and they think back to what you've done to make those traditions so special, it's going to be knowing that you took the time
Yeah.
and it was about mom's time and mom's effort to really make something unique and special to our family. They may not see
Yes.
it now, but we know as you get older, you look back and you go, man, that took my mom a long time. How in the world did my mom pull that off? And so now what about a recipe? Is there a meal or a snack that you're like,
Oh,
have to have it? And I'm putting some
okay.
recipe cards together for the listeners. So if you have a recipe, we can include it.
Okay. So here's my honest, shameful plug right here. I am the
Okay.
worst cook in the world. Awful. I have never been able to cook well. I've never been able to do any of it. It's always been a makeshift, what can I throw together? And luckily, like my husband now has a really big family. He's one of 7 siblings. So
Oh, wow.
everything happens over there, big Italian family. So I'm like, okay,
Maybe you'll have to ask somebody in the family. You'll have to say, okay,
I
is there like a family recipe that I could share?
absolutely.
I bet you're a better cook than you think.
And I will say right now I'm trying to master one of our kids has just become gluten free.
Oh
So
gosh,
I'm
yeah.
trying to master gluten free desserts because our heart has been broken whenever like desserts come through and stuff like that. So I am really working on cooking gluten free like desserts and breads. And so that is
Mm,
something that has become my new found venture in the kitchen.
yeah, yeah. And I bet you're gonna do great at it. I bet you will.
We will see.
We'll see. Yeah. I close out each interview asking, is there something you're praying for? Could we join you in prayer? And is there a verse that you could share with our listeners?
Absolutely. My prayer really is for this generation coming up, these kids that are
Hmm.
coming up. And sometimes it can feel like the world is so dark that we're raising them in. And my prayer is literally to raise them up to be bold in their faith and just trust the Lord. Like, as much as they're hearing these loud sounds come in, that we can just pour the truths, pour the light, and pour the hope for them to be able to move forward. I used to worry so much about them, but
Hmm.
I've really been working on leaning into God and saying, God, I truly believe this is the generation that we are going to be able to equip to create your change for your glory. And so that
Hmm.
has been one of my biggest prayers,
Yeah, I love
um,
that.
is over these kids. And so one of the verses that I cling to the most through some of the things that our family has been through is Romans 5. And in 2 through 5, it says, we have also obtained access through him by faith into the grace in which we stand, and we rejoice in the hope of the glory of God. And not only that, but we also rejoice in our afflictions because we know that our affliction produces endurance.
Mhm.
Endurance produces proven character, and proven character produces hope. This hope will not disappoint us because God's love has been poured out in all of our hearts through the Holy Spirit who is given to us. We have
Mm,
hope no matter what we go through. And so
yeah.
that is the verse whatever hard thing, it produces beautiful things if we just follow God through it.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time and the
Absolutely.
tools. It's been a blessing to talk with you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to The Mom Show with Courtney Doyle. Remember to check the show notes for any links, books, or resources that are mentioned in each episode. We want to be sure this blesses other mothers. And in order to do this, if you're listening via podcast, be sure that you like and share. If you could write a review, that would be fantastic. It helps us get in front of other moms. If you're watching via YouTube, be sure to hit that subscribe button. This way, you won't ever miss an episode. We want to make sure that we increase our reach to other mothers who need a little encouragement, a community, and a whole lot of Jesus. We're so glad you're here.